Hey everybody, welcome back to The Best Thing Ever, a podcast about the stuff your friends like. Each week we take a topic, we do a deep dive into that topic, and then we rank it on the master list of best things ever. Today, though, we have a very special episode. This is episode 17, and today's topic is variety. Our guest could not choose a topic from the myriad of things in the world and wanted a nice potpourri. And so we will have a variety of topics and then debate the merits of variety. And that will include such things as a thing, another unrelated thing, and yet another different thing. Let me introduce you to the panel. I'm your host, Alex Falcone, and I'm going to introduce everybody in a game that I call Two Hosts and a Lie. So here are some things that may be true or not. So I once carried a brothel owner's luggage through an airport. That is a fun fact about me. Could be true, could be a lie. Also joining us, he's in charge of marketing on the show. Ezra Fox won a science fair in 5th grade by changing the color of his fish.
Yeah, basically it's just food coloring, which is also fish coloring.
And fish can sometimes be food. Yeah, it's a complicated world.
Yeah, that's right. All coloring is fish coloring. If it's for a fish that you're gonna eat.
If you changed it genetically, this was a hard contest to win. If you changed it with food coloring, not that hard. I wouldn't be that proud of yourself. Also joining us, Anthony Lopez is our resident historian, and he has moved at least 30 times in his life.
Yep, and I'm very well-rounded. I have no psychological damage from that at all.
Well, you're like a stone rolling around, rounds off the edges. It's perfect.
Yeah,
gathering no moss.
You know, Alex, carrying a brothel owner's luggage really does sound like something you would pay for at a brothel. It sounds like a weird sex thing, Like I carried his luggage, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
That's what it sounds like.
You don't mean just like the fetish is for being a bellhop.
No, I mean, it might be a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B.
That's what I thought you were insinuating.
Yeah.
I just really like having that hat on, man. It's very sexy.
Yeah, I like standing there getting a little tip, like having someone give me $1.
Just the tip.
Just the tip, yeah.
I also thought, actually, it was a broth owner. Which is like because bone broth can be expensive, and so it's like, wow, this person owns broth? That's amazing.
I got $5 worth of fish sauce as a tip.
Yeah, he's from the family broth. They invented it.
Oh, wow.
So Hunter is away one more week, but we have a very special guest today. He is a keynote speaker, I think is the coolest way to say it. Public speaker, confident public speaker. He can stand in front of people without shaking. Motivational, if you need motivation. I don't know. Anyway, he's also a TikTok celebrity and the author of the book How to Host a Viking Funeral. And you can find all of his stuff just at Kyle Scheele. You got your name everywhere. Please welcome Kyle Scheele to the program.
Thank you.
And Kyle,
happy to be here.
My fact that I've chosen about you is my favorite of all of your viral videos. The one that has been shared with me the most by people who don't know you is your tandem centaur bike. So you famously you found a tandem bike and were like, obviously this looks like a centaur is riding it if you build a centaur behind and wear centaur legs.
Yeah, exactly.
And no one else has ever thought that, and it's absolutely perfect. It's the greatest thing that I've ever seen.
Yeah, I don't know if you could say no one's ever thought of it as much as no one's ever had the courage to follow through on it.
That could be
You know what I mean? That's I'm sure
I can't say whether or not anyone's thought of it, but it's absolutely brilliant.
What's funny is when I had the idea, I thought for sure someone else has already thought of this and done this before. I don't know why, but for whatever reason, it seemed like a very obvious idea to me. And it was finally a friend of mine was like, I think this is only obvious to you, Kyle. And so it was sort of like this backhanded thing.
You've been on the internet for a while. You've done internet projects before. I can understand the inclination that's like, I've seen that somewhere, right? Somebody's done it. Everything I've thought of, if I Google it, 6 people have already sold shirts saying the joke I thought of. So I get that, but man, this would never have occurred to me, and it works so perfectly.
I will say, I think that everyone really likes this, except probably the one person who rode like an entire Tour de France as the back half of like one of the human 2-horse get-ups, and they're like, I could have just had this not be me this whole time.
There has to be a tandem de France, right? That's got to exist.
So, we're just already getting off on tangents, which is great. It goes to the theme.
Yes.
The point.
one of them is that when I posted this video telling the story, and I was like, oh, I thought it was only obvious to me. Of course, it's the internet. People were like, oh, this guy thinks he's so special, which is not what I said. But somebody else went and tracked down. They're like, actually, idiot, someone else did already do it. And they posted like another Centaur bike. And like that one, because I did this in, I don't know, 8 years ago or something. Yeah. And that person had tagged me as like, hey, I saw Kyle Scheele do this, and I rebuilt it based on him. And so this person was trying to dunk on me, and I was like, ha-ha. So it was great.
Well, you sure got the last word on that internet commenter here today. That's right. You've really showed
died of shame.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on, and I met you through TikTok, and this is my first time getting to like do a long public conversation with you, and I'm very excited about it. The way we set up the show is that I ask you what is the best thing ever, and then you tell me your favorite thing, and you refused. So when I
disagree with the entire premise,
you said I fundamentally disagree with you. I don't even understand the concept of a favorite color, because every color is good for some things and shitty for other things. So let's start out before we dive into variety. Normally we do the core memory of your favorite thing here, but tell me, how long have you been indecisive?
Oh, my whole life. But I also, like, I've just never really gotten, like, when people say, what's your favorite this or your favorite, anything.
Yeah.
I always am just like, in what context? Like, it just drives my wife nuts. My friends don't like this about me. This is not, like, a good thing. This is just who I am, though. Like, and so my favorite color for what is the question that I always ask. And they're like, well, just in general. And I'm like, I don't have an in general favorite color because of what I said. Every color is good for some things and bad for other things. And everything, like, it's anything, you do it all the time and you get sick of it. And so that's why I'm like, variety is the spice of life. I think the more things that you can do, the better. So that's how I had asked you, can I come on and just fundamentally disagree with the premise? Or should we pick variety as kind of a hacky way of doing that?
But we're going to do both. You can disagree with any part of it. You can disagree with the two hosts and a lie portion. You can hate the visuals. Whatever you want, man. You're welcome to disagree.
And if you can do that in like the meanest way possible towards Alex too, that would really help me out right now. Okay. I'm going through a lot right now. People have been nice to Alex and it's throwing me off balance.
You've got a group of kids, Kyle. One of the things I've noticed is that people, because we don't know how to talk to children, we ask them their favorite thing all the time. Do you not do that to your kids? Or did they have they inherited your wife's ability to make decisions?
Oh no, they have favorite colors. Also, like, and I'm fine asking other people what their favorite colors are, just because I don't understand why you would have one. I'll still ask you if that's a conversation that we want to start. Well, and it's also funny. One of the things about kids that's interesting is like, they are their own person. We were kind of briefly touching on this before we started recording. But like, I have 3 daughters, and my wife is not a particularly like girly girl. And so and like, I grew up with no sisters. And so when we like had kids, we're like, we're not going to do the whole like princess and pink and and then all 3 of our girls just like love pink, love princesses. Yeah. And we're like, I don't know where this came from. We went and saw.
I do know where this came from. It came from Disney, but yeah.
It came from Disney. Yeah. Well, we saw The Little Mermaid last night. Right. We watched it in theaters. And my 5-year-old, when they kiss at the end, spoiler alert, she literally stood up in her chair and went, yes! Whisper shouted yes. And I was like, where did this come from?
Yeah. But you don't like princesses or pink, and you hate kissing, famously. So the fact that she was into that is weird. Why would you touch your mouths? It's just like it's like a grosser part of your body.
I mean, I get where you're coming from, especially like, like as a big movie guy, or as somebody who like people think of as a big movie guy. I constantly get people asking like, "What's your favorite movie?" And I hate that question. I really do, because I like generally don't know how to answer it. There's so many good movies. It's really going to depend on like what's the last really great movie I saw, or like what's going on in my life. Like the thing is shifting. constantly, and I've always found.
And what are
like,
you trying to do? Like, what job are you asking the movie to do? Like, do you want like there are times that you want a movie that is just dumb and funny, and you know it's dumb and funny, and there's other times you want a movie that makes you cry, or you want a movie that makes you whatever, like whatever job you're trying to hire that movie for.
Yeah, and like stuff like my favorite colors so often comes down to like what was the last cool suit I saw. Like if I see a guy in a really cool purple suit and you ask me what's my favorite color, I'm probably gonna say
it might be purple.
If I see another guy come around the corner in like a real, or like a girl come around in like a really cool like green suit or dress or something, I might go green. Yeah, it's like if I see like a really cool use of that color, it might like completely like color my view for a little.
I always thought you lived in Southeast Portland. Do you live in a 1920s musical? Why are there so many guys and dolls in their bright colors in your neighborhood?
Well, we know that your favorite movie is The Joker. That's where you're coming up with a purple suit.
Off the top of your head, you were like, "What's a random thing I like?" Well, I do love a purple suit.
Yeah, well, I love me a good jokester, and nobody is more about variety than the jokester. But no, I pay extra for the Technicolor vision. Don't you all? Yeah. Don't you all like go when you go to an optometrist? Go, give me that Technovision color.
No. I'm cheap. I like give me the basics. I'll scratch it if I wanna.
Okay.
I don't need color. I think you're right, Kyle. I would genuinely agree with you on almost all of this. I do think, as a person who creates content and gives speeches, that nuance just is less fun. It's just not like nuance is bad content most of the time.
Yeah.
Like there like a YouTube channel that is like, guys, some movies are good for some things and other movies are good for other things. Like it's just hard to like hit that like and subscrib button, you know?
Yeah, and
I get that.
I also kind of feel, and like I don't blame you for sort of kind of having that response, because I think Alex is a very poor communicator and bad at explaining concepts. But I kind of think that your point is like it's not disagreeing with this show. In a lot of ways, it's supporting what we do here. Because this show, we rank stuff, but it's not in like a competition to like find like an objective best thing. It's really more about like finding out why people relate certain ways to like certain things.
Yes.
Exactly. Like, and like sort of my favorite episode we did was on like wrestling, and I'm like a huge wrestling
interesting.
fan,
Weird that you picked that.
And well, no, but what I'm saying is like I know Alex and Ezra could not care less about wrestling, so I got to explain to him what I kind of think is like intellectually stimulating and fascinating about wrestling, and it was a really fun conversation. Or like we did the Nordic ski track 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, Nordic track ski machine. Yeah,
so fascinating and weird, and like to find somebody who cared so passionately about the Nordic ski track machine, it was amazing. It was like looking into a fish tank. It was just like, what kind of world is in there? I'm so curious.
Yeah, this is about getting an in to somebody's things that they like. So it's adding variety to our life at the sacrifice of you having to make a decision. But I'm willing to go with you on this. You asked for variety. We're going to give you variety. So today we're going to start. Maybe we'll start with a purple suit. We'll end with a green dress. We'll see how it goes. So what we've decided to do, instead of doing just the four, just the one thing where we dive deep, instead we're going to dive shallow, which everyone knows the safest form of diving. We're going to do. I think we do a shallow dive, not shallow water. Anyway,
I mean, I think what they say is head wounds are the spice of life, if I understand this.
Yeah. Well, no, but so scuba diving versus snorkeling. We're just going to stay near the top, try to touch a fish. That's what we're doing.
Or maybe like the Jesus, the Jesus bugs, whatever, right?
The lizard, the Jesus lizard. Yeah.
Thank you.
Also famously Jesus, but yeah, we're gonna skim across the top of the water,
Jesus
very
himself,
shallow. Yeah, we're gonna glance off the water like a skipping stone or a Jesus, and that is how we're going to do it today. So we're going to have four
Normally
things.
We do that. You ever seen those videos of people who do like the no tank deep dive? when they like just hold their breath and they jump down in the water and they sink for like 10 minutes and you're like, what the fuck are they doing? No one wants them to do that. That's crazy. That's what we normally do each week. We do the equivalent of that.
The only thing I'm looking for from everybody today, I asked you to prepare, each of you to prepare one thing. The only thing I care about is that you're interesting. I think there's maybe a time and a place for not interesting, but I'm going to go on the assumption that one of the better things in the world is being interesting. So we just I don't know what your 3 things are, but each of us has one thing that we think might be interesting to everybody else, and we are just going to go through them, and that'll be a variety. So 4 shallow dives.
This was a hard prompt for the record.
Was it?
I didn't. Well, it's like, just don't bore me is like kind of a tense. You're
right. It does sound adversarial that way.
Yeah. Or else, Ezra.
Maybe I should have framed it this way, which is like, look, if we were at a dinner party tonight, what's one thing you might bring up that you've thought about recently?
Oh, I have to go now. That's probably. I'm late to get back to my family. That is what it is.
Ezra's number one thing is leaving dinner parties early.
It's wonderful.
Well, I'll go first because this is something I was just thinking about over the weekend, and I made a video about this yesterday, which I'm assuming none of you have seen because that'll make this less fun. But
I saw it.
Oh, you already saw it. Okay, so Ezra knows about this. But did any of you guys watch the NBA Finals this weekend? This last week?
No.
Not big NBA guys. Great. So we're watching.
I did go to a Knicks game, one of the finals Knicks games, a couple weeks ago.
Hey,
congratulations! Okay, great.
As a centaur?
I thought you were gonna say a couple years ago. No. I did go to a Knicks game a couple years ago.
Once I've seen the Knicks. Well, that's fun.
I watched the Knicks starring Clive Owen. That's kind of like basketball.
Yeah. So the NBA Finals are going on, and the first 2 games took place in Denver. You don't have to care about basketball to be interested in the rest of this, but they take place in Denver, and the Denver arena. The basketball arena is called the Ball Arena, and it's that cursive B that you would recognize almost immediately from mason jars.
Okay,
so that's what's
mason jars.
Ball Mason Jar Company. You've seen this around.
God.
So let me grab you a picture here. Here we go. Okay,
it's so sad that like the idea of a mason jar company owning a arena genuinely kind of makes me happy in the age of like crypto.com owning arenas. Like there's something about
you'd think so.
Anthony, you'd think so. God. That might be what this story is about. So we're watching this game and they're playing in the Ball Arena and the logo's painted on the floor. My wife comes in, who's not been watching the game, and she goes, "Hey, is that the Mason Jar people?" I was like, "Yeah, what's the Ball Arena." And she was like, "How do they have stadium naming money? That seems weird. Are they secretly in like defense contracting or aerospace?" And then we had this great like fun riff where we were like, "Man, wouldn't it be funny if like the military was buying a ton of mason jars and it was like one of those hipster weddings where there's like picnic tables and like fairy lights in all the army bases." And we have a great riff. We have a wonderful time. We laugh it up. And then she leaves and I Google it. And you guys, 100% Ball is in defense contracting and aerospace. They absolutely are.
I'm reading this right now.
Anthony's instincts. You were right on. That would be cool if a jar company owned an arena. You can't. It's aerospace. So they made canning equipment in jars since the 1800s. In the 1950s, they pivoted to satellites, which is a hard pivot. But they figured out, look, we make good glass. We need glass in space, some other things. They started making satellites, and over the next 50 years, they got more and more to. They made like the mirrors on the James Webb Space Telescope. They made a bunch of parts of the Hubble Space Telescope, but they also went hard into just straight up defense. They make like antenna packages for fighter jets is one of their main things.
Dude, I'm reading this. They don't even make their own jars anymore.
They don't make jars.
They sold that to a subsidiary company and spun that off, and they licensed the Ball name to them. This
is what I'm saying.
Hilarious.
The thing, they make satellites and fighter jets. What they don't make is fucking jars. They're not in the jar business, you guys. Isn't that crazy?
This is the best. Hold on. This is the best line from this Wikipedia article. It says the company continued to expand into other areas such as avionics, aerospace, and metal, beverage, and food containers. And then it acquired Jeffco, like Jeffco. Jeffco is which was a maker of recyclable aluminum beverage cans, and they became the largest producer of recyclable beverage cans in the world.
Yeah, so
I just love that a guy named Jeff started Jeffco and then sold it to Ball.
I was expecting from the way that was going, it was going to be like, yeah, Jeffco, they make nukes.
Yeah, I mean,
probably
it's a pretty good idea. Like, put your name on the company. What are they going to do? Kick you out eventually? Right?
Yeah.
Well, so they stop making jars. They make a lot of they do a ton of defense contracting. They do a bunch of aerospace. But this led me down a long rabbit hole of just other companies that I didn't know make shit for the military.
Can I say one quick thing about Ball before you kind of take us off? Well, I do want to say, in their defense, it makes a lot of sense that they would work in military sense. You know, they're kind of leak proof.
All right.
I'll take it.
Mason joke.
I'll take it
because it's real tight seal.
Yeah,
they don't have a lot of leaks.
Yeah. I think that's good. Not a lot of bacteria getting into that.
Yeah,
which also is very important in satellites. Interestingly enough, but so Ball is this weird thing. I thought maybe that's an outlier. And let me tell you, it's not. If you know a company that manufactures a physical thing, they also make war machines. So, like, one of them that I learned, AMF, is they make bowling alley pin setters is the thing I know them for. They also make nuclear power plants, and they also make missile launch systems for ICBMs. So they're like pin set, those animations where like the bowling ball drops and bombs on pins. That's them. Also, planes dropping bombs on people is also them.
Oh my god!
Yeah, that's just them reusing footage from their like demos
it's just plane footage.
Yeah.
Have you seen somebody made like 9/11 bowling alley videos?
This is if you guys have not seen this series, there's like people now making like exaggerations of the bowling pin animations, and they're so gnarly.
And they look exactly like, this would be in a bowling alley. Like, it's like the guys who are doing those on their off time were like, let's make some 9/11.
Yeah. It's like smuggled out of the factory that makes the real ones. Yeah. Another one I found. So Honeywell, the first thing I see like air conditioning and like the alarm systems, right?
Yeah.
You've seen Honeywell alarm systems.
Yeah, AC units. Mostly.
They also invented the autopilot system that the Enola Gay used to drop the bomb on Japan. They invented hands-free nuclear weapon systems to like just cruise, take a nap while you're going to exterminate a city. That is the same people that make air conditioning. And apparently they actually made that before they got into air conditioning. They were definitely more into war than into that.
That's an interesting pivot also then.
Yes.
Where it's like...
Well, so another one that
we want to be able to drop these nukes, but it's kind of hot in here. And then... Maybe we can tackle that first.
Yeah, we accidentally... Our offices are brutal. We could do way more war if we were cooler in here.
This is amazing. Wait, yeah, so this happens in both ways, where it's like, you know what? We started out by warmongering, but what if we monger just like other things, like fish or whatever, or cheese, you know?
Well, our skill is mongering. We could monger anything.
We're just mongerers. That's fine. We can monger lots of stuff.
To a monger, everything looks like a mongery. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
John Deere and Roomba partnered a couple years ago to make automatic war tractors that drive around military bases and shoot people.
Yeah, I can't see how that would go bad.
Oh, it's crazy. I don't want the vacuum. Like, stay in vacuums. You're doing great at vacuums.
Have you? Have any of you guys played?
We're doing okay at vacuums.
Have any of you guys played the new Zelda game on Switch?
Oh yeah.
Yes. Of course, they both have.
That feels like what is going to happen when you start like building the stuff, like the different machines and stuff that you can build in that game. That's what I feel like is going to happen with the tractor Roomba thing, where you're like, oh, I think it'll just do this, and it ends up like, you know, I don't know, committing genocide on the Koroks in the game or whatever. You're like,
a lot of Korok.
I was
war
just
crimes.
trying to make something, you know, that would drive around. So
yeah.
Put too many automated pieces together. It's not good.
That's a perfect metaphor. In fact, you let humans do manufacturing, they're going to use it for something gnarly.
Well, also sometimes if it's sometimes in Zelda, it's just big penis machines that move. That's fun.
Oh, right.
That's
so
not hurting
you're
anyone.
wondering, like, what's the time to penis for, like, the ball jar company or...
It was the first day. They knew what they were doing.
So that's my interesting fact, is the ball jar people don't make jars. They make airplanes that go boom. And That's such a
weird thing, though, for them to then, like, I mean, I think it's weird for anybody to sponsor an arena, but is that just purely like we wanted to do this? Because, like, with Crypto.com or whoever, it's like, oh, you get all this name recognition, but, like, there's not like a Northrop Grumman arena somewhere else. Like the other big aerospace country.
To me, it makes more sense. Like, Balls has been around for, you said they were like 100+ year company, right? Yeah, there's something about, like, I get, like, if you've been around for that long, you want to have your name on a big building. Like, that makes sense. What I don't get is, like, the obvious, like, FTX and, like, crypto, these things that are, like, obvious Ponzi schemes and rug pulls and stuff. And it's like, why did you buy an arena?
That makes a ton of sense.
No, that makes the most sense, Anthony. If you're a pyramid scheme, the layers get harder to find enough people to fill that layer.
Yes.
So you're like, I need to have stadium naming to get the last because you're near the end. So, like, what's the biggest thing you can do to get the last?
That's the thing is you're buying credibility.
Yes,
that's true.
And Ball doesn't need the credibility, so I don't understand that.
So here's my theory, Kyle. So I did a show about an hour and a half north of LA a few weeks ago, and on this highway, it's remote. I'm in the middle of nowhere. And there's a billboard for the stealth bomber. They're advertising the stealth bomber, and I am not in the market, right? This is it's like $10 billion or whatever. Like, how many people are driving up this road that can afford a stealth bomber? Ezra, you're trying to figure out a good used price? I can see that on your face.
No, I'm just wondering, like, do they take Klarna? Is there, like, a buy now, pay later thing?
How many easy payments and how easy are those payments?
So I was thinking about it, and one of the things is there's an Air Force base out that direction, and here's the theory. My theory is that billboard is not for me. It's for one person. Like, once a year, a member of the Joint Chiefs has to come to a meeting here. He drives by it and is like, oh, we should buy more stealth bombers. I suspect naming the arena the Ball Arena was not for most of us. But Denver has a large aerospace industry, and every once in a while, somebody from the Pentagon watches basketball, and they're like, oh, I should invest in more of their high-tech spy satellites or something. I think this is one of those where you pay $1 billion in naming rights for, like, 6 people to get advertised to, because each one of them could give you $100 billion.
That makes sense. Fair. I also kind of have this association with Denver just as a place that, like, the sort of the oddness of the Denver airport bleeds into everything else. So I assume it's also just like it's got some weird shit in it, like the Denver airport. I don't know. Isn't all Denver like kind of just the airport secretly stretched out?
I mean, we should say one more obvious thing about this. That's a great point, but we should say one more obvious thing, which is Ball Arena for a basketball arena is a badass name. Crypto.com is a terrible name. At least they were like natural ballers.
Here's what this is actually. I thought about this. It's absolutely a spite naming because they were really tired of baskets getting top billing, and they're like, no. We'll be before the basket now.
Right. We're taking back the ball in basketball.
It's ball basketball.
Right. There's no basket arena.
Yes.
There's no. Yet. What's a basket company? Do we know a basket company?
Longenberger is the basket company.
Oh, yeah.
It feels fake because it feels like there's an award. It's a very prestigious award for books, but it's called the National Book Award. And it just, because of that, it's like a big deal if you win the National Book Award. But it just sounds like you just made it up. It sounds like in Talladega Nights when he's talking about, and he goes, oh, it won the Academy Award for Best Movie Ever. That's what it sounds like when you're like, oh, yeah, it won the National Book Award. Like, it just sounds like you're trying to come up with one as your... And so Ball Arena kind of like falls into that for me. Like, it's too vague.
Absolutely.
And it feels like there's no way it's actually called that. Yeah.
Absolutely. That is a very good point. It's basically too good. But I like it. That's my number one fact that I'm interested in. That's what happened to me this weekend. Ezra, did you have something that you came up with?
I had a list of things.
Given you some time. Yeah.
Yeah, a list of things is better than one thing.
If you did a sub-variety.
Variety to your variety. I like it.
Oh, I don't know. That might be too much.
Okay, well, here's I don't know what to do with this. I got a list of like 7 things, but I think the one I'm most interested in talking. So this is an idea I've been thinking about for a while. This is the idea called the meta sweater. So, do you guys know how there's lint And the dryer. That's like basically.
I know how there's lint in the dryer.
Yes.
That sounds like an activation phrase. That does not sound.
Our eyes just turn red.
Yeah. Do you know how there's lint
south in the winter
and there is lint in the dryer? The goose flies south in the winter and there's lint in the dryer. Like what?
Oh no!
The
I just
fuck
unleashed
are
the
we
Winter
talking
Soldier.
about? Yeah.
Okay. So in the dryer there is lint. We all know it's in the lint trap. Okay.
Yeah,
I already know where you're going with this. Yeah, you're going to make a sweater out of the lint.
All the lint. Could you respin that into yarn? Is your question?
Make into yarn, right? And then get to knitting. This is the meta sweater.
This is an excellent idea. Have you already Googled this?
No.
Okay. Because
I'm sure Kyle did it 8 years ago.
I know Kyle's like, oh
no, but I do literally. I had this same conversation 20 years ago with another guy that I know who he was like, that was his. He was just sort of saying, hey, have you ever thought about how much of our clothes we lose every year to the lint trap? And he's like, I want to make a, use this to patch my clothes or something like that. He had not, I think Meta Sweater is a great branding, so it makes sense. You're the marketing guy. I'm
not seeing somebody doing it. But I am.
I wonder why.
No. So there are a lot of people asking, and the answer, like everyone seems to say, theoretically yes. It's like, actually, this is a really terrifying answer. Dryer lint, like human hair, is not as desirable for yarn as alpaca or goat fiber.
Who is pitching the other one? I don't want to be lumped in with those people.
Was that the thing you started with? I guess you could use yourself as wool. Is the question.
Can I be wool? I'd like to be wool now.
The lint that collects your dryer is from a bunch of different clothes, like cotton, linen, and rayon, and other fibers. So that's probably not good. Also, they break off, they're very minuscule because they've been broken a lot. So they're really trying to get you to not. Why dry lint yarn isn't a good idea seems to be the main thing here.
You're not convincing me yet.
But it's not. But it's not possible. So I think this is a YouTube project you need to do as.
Yeah.
I'm not good at many of these parts of this.
I know. Well, first you need to buy a tiny loom. That's the main thing, I think.
I think you need a wheel to spin the stuff.
I need a wheel. I need to find a Rumpelstiltskin first. Okay, that's it. I'll have a bad deadline because I can do that, and then I can get a Rumpelstiltskin.
You just need you need a Metastiltskin.
Yeah.
Oh, made out of
you need okay. You need to go into the metaverse. You need to find a Metastiltskin, and you need to have it make your meta sweater.
Okay, so how the next question is how do you turn?
I think it's fleece into
wool.
Fleece into no, it's already wool. I think it's fleece into yarn. I guess, right?
Yeah. How hard is this? Yeah, this looks hard. I hate this. Okay.
Plucking and brushing. I'm not going to do that.
So, Ezra, you need this machine.
I'm not going to do the first step. Okay, right away. I'm not doing it.
I'm off.
Okay, with cotton, they have there's a process called carding where you have these basically two brushes and you're just brushing them against each other.
Yeah,
that's
I've seen
carding
the
satisfying.
yarn.
And then that somehow, I don't know, straightens the fibers out and sorts them and stuff like that. So maybe you just need to do that with your lint.
This is a good start, Ezra. Because those little brushes, it looks like two pet brushes, but you do them back. That looks satisfying, and you could do it while you're watching TV. So start with that. Get two of those. Get a ball of lint, and just see what happens. That's where we'll go from there.
How about let's give the audience Ezra's address, and everyone will mail our link to Ezra. Maybe a P.O. box.
This is the weirdest kind of doxing ever, Kyle. Thank you.
And imagine Ezra's postman just getting, or postwoman getting just. Why are all these packages so light? Well, it's because they're just filled with dryer lint.
Oh my god!
I like this a lot. I think, and this is why this is the perfect thing to bring up when Kyle is on the show. This is the most Kyle idea I think you've ever said on this podcast. I feel like because that's what you would do, Kyle, is you'd be like, everyone mail me your lint in an envelope, and then you'd collect all those thousands of envelopes, and then 6 years later you'd be like, well, I guess now I owe them a sweater.
Yeah, that is what would happen. Yeah.
I love this so much.
I know it's not illegal and there's no way it is, but for some reason the idea of like mailing lint seems like it should be illegal. Like I don't know why. My first thought was like that can't be legal. Then I was like, wait, why not? Why wouldn't that be legal?
It's probably a fire hazard a little bit, but
lightly flammable.
So is envelope.
Everything that you mail in the mail is made of paper.
Yeah,
it's all
you're
very
right.
Okay,
you're right.
It's just very weird. It's just a very weird idea. Makes
all
me
right.
uncomfortable.
So we did topic 1, ball is death, and then now we're going to do. We did topic 2, meta sweater. Kyle, I'm going to give you the option to go third or to defer and close us out. What do you prefer?
mine is a little heavy, so I'll go third so that we can end on something light. It's not.
I love it.
It's not.
It
is kind of heavy.
Light, motherfuckers. I'm gonna get even heavier.
Look,
I'm changing my subject. Whatever you did, I'm going to. Let's find it.
I thought yours was going to be just like 10 minutes of just ragging on Alex.
That's also possible.
Yeah. That's kind of
Okay, hit me with your heavy thing, Kyle. Let's do it.
So here's it's just an interesting fact. I learned this a long time ago, but I think about this all the time. Is that Aldous Huxley and also C.S. Lewis, both very famous writers, they both died the same day that JFK died, and so because of that, almost no one knows that they died. And now they're like they've been gone for a long time. But even when I was in high school,
I mean,
a lot of people thought C.S. Lewis was still alive because his books were still very popular, and it was not a big story that he had died because he died an hour before JFK died.
Interesting. So you're saying like you want your movie to come out on a day that not a lot of other movies came out.
Yeah.
You want to die on a day where no one famouser died.
Well,
so
or you want your movie to come out like to be counter programming to a big movie, right? So you want to die on the day like somebody really different than you died,
right, like the Puppy Bowl. You want to be a totally different demographic interested in you.
But also at the same time, right, there's certain movies or video games or whatever, right? Like Avengers, right? Nobody is going to open up against Avengers. Like you might have that, and like JFK assassination is like is the Avengers of.
I've always said that.
Death. You know, it is like it's one of the big ones.
It's one of the big ones.
Definitely one of the big ones. For sure.
The sitting president of the United States getting his head blown off is kind of a hard one to top.
Genuinely. Okay, so this is not fair because JFK has had 40 more years to let this build, but I have an honest question for you guys. Kind of random.
Okay.
What do you think, if I went to YouTube right now, do you think I could find more videos analyzing the JFK assassination or analyzing the ending of Avengers Endgame?
Ooh.
Like, genuinely, what do you think has a higher... Because I bet they're pretty close. I bet there's probably more videos on Endgame.
But no, look, this is not fair. You're picking your platform. So let's say, okay, so yes, more
go to Letterboxd instead.
More YouTube videos about that one. But were there more nightly news reports as a percentage of available news that day about JFK versus the day Avengers came out?
Yeah, but were they dissecting like I think reporting on the JFK assassination versus dissecting the Zapruder film, those are different.
Well, that's also
things.
interesting. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of people talking about the Zapruder film. I mean, that's like there is a lot of that, but it's also just the timeline is unfair, Anthony. It's so much older. It's had too much time to ruminate.
I have a great story about this. I was in Fort Worth for an event with this consulting client of mine, and they were like, here's the address of the hotel, and I pull it up to give it to the Uber driver, and it's like I can't remember the name of the hotel, but it's on the thing, on like the description on Google, it says famously the hotel where JFK stayed the night before he died, and it's like a very big hotel. But this is the best part of it. There's no comma, no punctuation. It says like the hotel where JFK stayed the night before he died, featuring Wi-Fi, a restaurant, and a pool. And it's like all they didn't. There was no pause in any of that. And like they
just
built
how
the
he
whole.
left it.
They put the whole theme of the hotel around that. Like, so in your bathroom of your hotel room was like a picture of the hotel and then like a quote about like that this was the day America's innocence died. And like when you go to the front desk, there's like the little store that has water bottles and Advil and stuff, and they also had newspapers from the day that JFK died that was just like in the hotel store. And
your Wi-Fi password is Grassy Knoll. That's a weird what a weird vibe for a hotel.
When you're like getting a massage, just constantly like back and to the left, and like giving
there is a hotel in LA, which is the hotel that Janis Joplin OD'd in, and that is the thing they advertise. And you can ask to stay in the OD room. And I guess there is a large amount of money to be made in spooky travelers.
Here's okay. So now I've got the story that's going to bring us back out of the dark.
Spooky. No. Just so you know, this isn't that dark. Anthony could definitely make this worse. But please, I want to hear your story.
Well, I mean, this is still along the same lines, but same company that I was working for, different event, and it was in a different hotel. Because we were like staying at their headquarters, or like working at their headquarters, and we pull up to this hotel that's also in Fort Worth, and it's me and my friend. We've like flown down there and we're like, where should we get dinner? And there's like a little Mexican restaurant called Rio Mambo that's like right next to our hotel. And we're like, oh, we'll just go over to Rio Mambo. So we walk over there, and next to Rio Mambo on the sign where it's not clear, is this the same place or is this two businesses or one business? But there's a sign that says Bar 911. And we're like, surely that can't be what we think it is. So we walk into this restaurant, and Bar 911 is the name of the bar, but that is inside this Mexican restaurant. So it's not a separate place. And we walk in, and we're like, there's no like 9/11 theme anywhere. There's not like a bunch of stuff. So we're like, maybe this means something else. Maybe they don't know about 9/11.
It's Bar 911.
No, it's
totally different.
So we're like trying to look around, like what's going on here? Is this like? Is this just like a case of these people don't know? Does this mean something else? But we sit at the bar, and the bartender's like just gives off a vibe of like, I don't want to talk to you. And so we're like, okay. And like the servers they're all busy. So we're like, well, we can't ask this question. Then we turn to leave. And like when we had walked in, we walked past this wall. It's like half wall. Well, there's nothing on the side that we walked past, but when we come back the other way, there's 4 pictures on that wall, and they're pictures from 9/11. And then overlaid on top of it is the most insane text I've ever seen. It is a timeline of 9/11, and then interspersed with that is a timeline of Rio Mambo, the Mexican restaurant, opening because it opened on 9/11. And so it's literally like 8:05 a.m., the first plane hits the South Towers. 8:11 a.m., I come in to open Rio Mambo for the first time. And then it's just back and forth with those things.
Look,
and
people
like
opening
this
that bar.
dude... He thought he was the second most important character in our nation's greatest tragedy.
He for sure was not the most affected by this, but I can see from his perspective, this really did rain on his parade.
Right, I get that part of it. I think the insane thing is that like 10 years later, he rebranded, because it wasn't Bar 911 then, obviously. So like 10 years later, he rebranded the bar as Bar 911. So... this is like I get dibs on posting a TikTok about this, but before I can do that, my friend who's with me tweets about it, and he just tweets a picture of the sign, and he wrote like, as we drove by, I thought surely that can't be what I think it is, and it totally was. That tweet goes crazy viral. He ends up in like an article on Vice, and in the Vice article, they called him a businessman. They're like, Jesse Tyler, a businessman, which is like. It's like technically true of anyone, I guess, but it's like not how I would describe him. So then I went and I ordered him a set of business cards that just says Jesse Tyler, and then it says a businessman, and it's attributed to Vice. So
I like everything about this. I think it's. I mean, I feel that you lost out on this great opportunity to be viral. But didn't this just provide the thing that restaurant wanted all along? This is what they needed, was to go viral for being the weird 9/11 timeline, and now everyone's going to have to stop there.
Like, Well, but like they got a ton of negative press for it, and like it was weird because the guy the Vice people called the restaurant, were like, we'd love to get some commentary, and the guy just like sort of doubled down on it, was like, no one's ever said anything bad about it, and the restaurant was packed because I've been there again, and both times it was packed, and so I don't know, it's a very weird thing to do, but it's also Fort Worth, so people are like, whatever, Texas, we can do what we want. But we did. I mean,
they're not making light of it. He wasn't like, the service is slow, these servers don't run or something. Like,
I know we did think we're like, is there going to be a margarita flight called Flight 93? Or are they going to?
Yeah, they definitely
burritos come vertical. Yeah, they could have. But also, I don't know. Like, if you started other then we started brainstorming like other forms of like disaster capitalism. Would you start a bar called the Grassy Knoll? Would you start a bar called like Pearl Harbor? Like, even if there's no other stuff, that's still offensive. So even if they don't go farther, like just calling it Bar 9/11 feels like, hey man, don't do that.
Let's just go. Look, I agree. This is all off limits. I think before humans existed is probably fine. So, let's just do one about the extinction of the dinosaurs, and that's probably safe, right?
Well, okay. So I'd love to stop by Bar 9/11. The marketing has worked for me. It's the right kind of disaster capitalism for me. But let's see, Anthony, can you make it darker? Let's round out our.
You don't have to.
No, I'm not actually going to make it dark. That's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk
about something.
Recently, we've had a little movie called Across the Spider-Verse came out this week.
Yeah.
Very, very good movie. I liked it quite a bit.
Yeah.
But more so than like how much I enjoyed the movie, which I did. I absolutely loved the movie. Think it's as good as the movie. First movie, 10 out of 10. Everyone should go see it. But for me, with certain films like this, more so than my enjoyment of the movie itself was how much enjoyment I got out of the hype cycle for it. Like the anticipating something, right? And like we also had Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, which came out earlier last month. Very, very similar thing where like the excitement for it became so like is such a part of the like my journey with the product itself, right?
Yeah.
And I've been thinking a lot about that because right now, I don't know if you guys know this, but right now is normally E3 season.
Oh, yeah.
E3 wasn't dead. E3 is dead. It does not exist anymore. But E3 has been a thing basically my entire life. It was the Electronics Gaming Expo. Took place every year in California, and basically every year for like a week, bunch of video game publishers and developers would get together, show off trailers, have gameplay demos, and it became like this big hype cycle, right? People watch the live streams of all the different conferences.
Yeah.
It becomes very, very exciting. And there is still, even though E3 is dead, there is still like Sony just had a big show. Microsoft has a big show coming up. There's Summer's Game Fest. But there's all these things that are there just solely to create hype and to like get people excited. And that's something that I don't think we could do a full episode on.
Right.
But I do think it was when we were thinking about like doing minis, it is one of those things that it's very, very hard to quantify. It's very, very hard to explain what it's like to be caught in the hype cycle for just like products or movies or whatever. But I do genuinely love it.
Yeah.
Like I don't watch the streams as thoroughly as I used to, but like for years I would like take off E3 days from work so I could sit at home with my friends and watch these live streams and talk about them in real time. Right?
Interesting.
Like, I did that for a long time. Or if I did have to work, I would basically check out for 2 hours while I watched one of these live streams on my phone, I mean, Apple just had a big event yesterday that, I'm not a big Apple fanboy, but a lot of Apple fanboys feel the same way.
Yeah.
But yeah, so my thing in general is just sort of the concept of hype and the concept of being excited for something. And like these times of the year when like you're going to like get caught up in these things. I don't know if you guys have anything in your life that's like that.
Here's what has actually happened on this podcast is we started out with me talking about I disagree with the premise of the podcast, and then we went through our whole thing, and then Anthony's whole bit is really just reselling the podcast again, because like the best thing ever an alternate title for this podcast could be The Hype Cycle, which is just real hyped up about one thing. And I actually am fine with that, because the thing about a hype cycle is you know that you're in it, and you know, like, oh, this thing isn't probably like going to stand the test of time and be as good as we're hyping it up to be, but that's fine. We're just doing, like, this is a thing that we're doing, and I'm fine with that. I think the reason I disagree with, like, having a favorite thing or a best thing ever is because I know, well, 2 weeks from now or 2 months from now, 2 years from now, I'm going to have a different thing. So it can't be the best thing ever.
So maybe what you could take from this and from the E3 hype cycle is like to just be in the moment and be obsessed with one thing for a time. So if somebody asks you your favorite color, instead of being like, for what, you could be like, red, for sure. I just saw a guy in a red suit. And then, but like,
it was a purple suit.
You don't have to be consistent on your favorite things over time. That would be crazy. But in the moment, you might have a favorite thing. Today, it's Spider-Man in different universes.
It's funny to me that the way the human brain works. I mean, mine in particular is like there is the same thing that makes a movie, like a horror movie monster, scary, can also make you like excited for a product. You know what I mean? The idea that like what makes the alien an alien or Jaws and Jaws scary is that you don't see them, right? It's the idea that your brain fills in the gaps, those things you don't see, right? And your brain will make things scarier than anything they could ever show you. And in a lot of ways, even though I do think it can get very unhealthy and for a lot of people, there is certainly this idea of like when these shows happen and they show you a possible future, right? They're not going to show you the exact future. I mean, especially like in E3, what's so funny about it is like there's a long history of, what people call like bullshot or like fake demos that aren't actually what the game is when it comes out 2 years later. But they're selling you this possibility for it, and your brain kind of fills in that, and like you can get enjoyment out of that. Like, there are plenty of games I've seen at E3 that I've gotten more enjoyment of, like thinking about and watching trailers and seeing people get excited about it than I ever had when I actually played it. Because when I played it, it just wasn't that good, right?
Yeah.
Like there is.
And how have you? So I guess my question for you, Anthony, is how have you not been beaten down by the failed hype cycle? How have you not been soured by how often these are lies?
Well, I mean, that's the thing is like, that is why, you get cynical occasionally, but that's why I wanted to like point out something like Across the Spider-Verse, which is that like occasionally something comes by and doesn't just like meet your expectations, but easily clears them.
Yeah, that's incredible.
You know what I mean?
And Zelda too,
Yeah, Tears of the Kingdom is another great example. That's things like you get kicked in the nuts a lot.
Yeah.
But every once in a while you get something like I don't know if you guys have seen.
No, you got to finish. What is the opposite of being kicked in the nuts?
Seeing Across the Spider-Verse in a big screen. Like I don't know if you guys, but I swear to God, my wife and I had the same exact experience. There were 2 points in Across the Spider-Verse that I found myself crying at, not because of like the emotion or whatever, but just because of the quality of the visuals.
Yeah.
What was causing a reaction in my body that I was just like crying tears of unbelievable happiness.
I went and saw a Broadway show this weekend. I saw Six in LA last weekend, which is dope, and you should definitely see it if you get an opportunity and you have that kind of money to throw around. This was a gift. But like Broadway shows have that thing for me where like if there's a certain thing where the dancing and the lights hit and there's a cue and the music is perfect, where like it doesn't matter what you're singing about, the structure is so perfect that it will make me cry. And I did not know that I had that in me, but it's happened several times. The first time I saw Lion King, the second time I saw Lion King the musical, both times the opening song, I was just like, overwhelmed with the incredible visual and auditory experience that it made me cry. And this happened like basically the whole of 6. I was basically like lightly tearing up the entire movie from how perfectly the visuals and music were. It's crazy.
Hadestown also gave me a very similar experience where it was just such a audio-visual treat.
Oh, that's so true. I'm glad you brought that up because it's weird because I'll cry at a lot of stuff if you give me the least emotional trigger, but I didn't realize I will cry at cool lights, and I definitely will.
But yeah, I mean, I just like, even though, like I said, E3 is spread out, not really a thing anymore, but there's a lot of things that I'm kind of trying to fill that gaps. This time of year, there is still like a part of me that just gets like excited about the idea of essentially watching commercials, right?
Yeah.
And I never have that for any other products. But the thing is also like the way hype brings together communities. Right, that's the other thing. Is if you go on like a gaming forum or if you hang out on Twitter, you see these people coming together to get excited about something or to like argue about something, or it's like the debate or whatever. And it's just like it brings these different groups together, and like especially as a kid who grew up in a very sort of traumatizing household, didn't have a lot of good things going for him. I would find like projecting onto these events and stuff like that.
I love it.
Really helped me just survive kind of like the more difficult times I had growing up.
I love that, and it is not nearly dark enough. Not enough people got shot in that story.
No, yeah, I mean, we can get into like booth babe culture. And we can talk about all the fucked up stuff that happens at after parties.
No, I think I'm probably good without that. But let's
let's talk about crunch to get those demos ready for E3.
Oh, it's bad.
Yeah, but it's fun because they have to like crunch 200-hour weeks or whatever, and then. Because it's just a vertical slice and not the real game, they get to throw away all that hard work after the demo is done anyway.
It's brutal. Okay, cool. So here's our variety pack for you, Kyle. Ball is Death, the Meta Sweater, the Day the Authors Died, and the Hype Cycle. That is your 4 topics that made your variety pack of podcasts today. We're going to decide where variety falls on the list of the best things ever. But first, we got to do a brief ad break. All right, so this episode is brought to you by our Patreon, patreon.com/BTEpod. We really, really appreciate everybody who keeps the show going by donating to the Patreon and gets all the great benefits, like citation needed. Okay, so we have something we want to do here for this that is related. Ezra had spearheaded a survey the last few weeks to help us understand what you like about the show, and one of the things we promised was that we would have a drawing for people who participated in the survey to get some merch. And so I have, as you guys know, the official helmet of chance, full of all of the names of the people who filled out the survey, and we really do appreciate all of that. We learned a lot, and we are going to change some things based on it and try to make the show a little bit better. But I have in here all of the names. Now, previously, when we drew stuff from the hat, it was always Anthony. But today, Anthony, your name has been removed. It's not about us. It's about the drawing. So
if it's another Anthony, guys, that hat is cursed.
Yeah, that hat is cursed.
Anthony's are in here, but there might be at least one. Okay, so Ezra, tell me when to stop.
Stop.
All right, the winner of the survey drawing is Laura. And there's only one Laura, I believe. So if you are a Laura and you filled out the survey, the listener survey, you get some merch, and I will be in touch with you about what that is.
I think if we were going to say, I think the thing we promised was merch or topic.
Oh, yes, merch or topic. So you can either, I'll email you about this. You can either have some podcast merch, some swag, or you can choose the topic that we will talk about, and Anthony will do a research project, and we'll decide if it's the best thing ever. So, Laura, start thinking about what you want. And maybe the best thing ever is free t-shirts, and that's kind of both.
Yeah. Not having to have Anthony research is the best thing ever.
Yeah, maybe
like giving Anthony a day off.
Yeah, that's really sweet. All right, now let's rank variety. All right, so we have 15 things currently on the master list. So many things that I've broken it into 2 columns because it was getting kind of unwieldy. Ezra, please read the top 15 best things ever.
Okay, from the bottom to the top. 15, Waffle House. 14, playing Halo with the boys. 13, cat videos. 12, powerlifting. 11, stand-up comedy. 10, Nordic track. 9, fresh bread. 8, The Sun. 7, advice columns. 6, trees. 5, romance novels. 4, pro wrestling. 3, My Neighbor Totoro. 2, firefighters. And 1, renamed again, back to the original, warm beverages.
Yeah, I decided that changing its name every time was not really fair. I had originally changed it to hot drinks because it just didn't fit on here as well and it had to be a different font, but now so many things are in a different font that it doesn't matter. Okay, Kyle, looking at this list, chaos. Looking at these top 15 things of all time, what is the thing that stands out the most to you, good or bad?
That there's a lot of variety.
Yeah.
In this master list.
There is. This is to Anthony's point earlier that you're actually exactly in the heart of the show by talking about variety. We're learning about other people's favorite things. Is there any item on here? I know you can't pick a favorite. Is there something on here that's like wildly higher than you would have ranked it? Or wildly lower?
Well, I think that because all life emanates from it, we'd have to go with the sun. The sun maybe should be higher. You could take powerlifting off, and it's not like, there was no cat videos without powerlifting. But none of this stuff really happens without the sun, so I feel like it's a little underrated.
We can't really prove that hypothesis. I mean, you could also say, like, without pro wrestling, none of these other things exist
No,
either.
we wouldn't say that. But we would...
We had the sun before pro wrestling, I'm pretty sure.
That's the thing is, we don't know. We can't get rid of pro wrestling.
We don't have
It's there.
I'm just saying, like, theoretically, who knows? Maybe without pro wrestling.
We can't do counterfactuals. However, I will say, this is the other thing that you might want to remember, Kyle, is that we are not all agreed that life existing is good. And I think that's one of the reasons why the sun is low on this list.
Well,
maybe
but also
things would be better.
The sun does kill a lot of people, so it's kind of playing both sides of that argument.
It is. That is true. But also the fact that we in general, we have kind of a pasty complexion. I think that might be part of also why the sun is not as hot, not higher. All right. So where do we think variety lands on this list? Ezra, what's your gut? Where does variety jump out to you?
Oh, I mean,
a variety of places.
It could be anywhere. Yeah.
I feel like we're looking at, for me, I'm looking at like the top 5 is probably where I'm that's like my quadrant.
So make the case for me as how does variety dominate your life in a top 5 sort of way?
I mean, I am also pretty indecisive. I think there's like a kind of apocryphal story of me growing up where I could not decide what to wear to go out to Halloween because I was so indecisive until 9 p.m. Of Halloween night, and so I missed a lot of good trick or treating. Generally, I like that option of and also a little of each was one of my favorite catchphrases growing up as well. So I do like a variety.
What's a situation where you would you would want a variety of things?
I mean, often when I'm
dim sum, dim sum's pretty good. That's true.
Yeah, I just want give me only shumai. It's not that's a wild person right there. It's you want a little bit of each.
But don't you feel like you might do a variety to see if I'm the way I tend to do a buffet is I'm going to try a lot of things on the first plate, but that'll tell me what I want to specialize in on the second plate.
Right. This is the explore exploit model. Basically,
explore exploit is how I think of my attack strategy on the buffet.
Yeah. Well, the first thing is, gotta play the field and gotta figure out. And there's actually an optimal stopping thing, which is 37% of the way in.
In a buffet, it's 200% of the way in. That's when I stop.
Try everything twice, and then I'll stop.
Right, but I'm not arguing that that everything is good. Everything on the buffet is good. What I'm arguing is that choosing one thing and then that being it, that is worse than variety. And so to use your example, yes, that is the right approach. Sample some stuff and then double down on what you like. But the wrong approach is then every day for the rest of your life to go to that buffet and only eat those two things.
I think variety by itself, right, is an interesting question of where it's on this list. What I think is interesting is looking at this list, the fact that every single one of these things, or almost every single one of these things, is better with variety. I would rather have a variety of warm beverages than a single type of warm beverage, right? I would rather have a variety of firefighters.
Why don't you describe for me your 3 favorite types of firefighters?
Oh, I mean, guy with an axe, guy with a hose, guy with the jaws of life. Very simple.
Oh, yeah.
He had those ready to go.
Yeah.
Locked and loaded.
Solid list.
Come on, Alex. But
I'm genuinely conflicted about this because I feel like the way I live my life a lot of the time is like I make a lot of similar things every week, but I have to change one thing constantly or I will lose my mind. I'll take a variety. I'll drive home a different way just because I'm afraid of getting in a rut. And I like seeing the new things.
Constants and variables.
But I also think a lot like, boy, wouldn't it be great if I was actually good at one thing? Like if I hadn't spent so much time trying to do a little bit of everything, it would be amazing. Like I see people who are like, oh, that kid played that cello solo the same way since they were 2, and they are the best cello soloist in the world. I'm so jealous of the lack of variety in Yo-Yo Ma's life that he just rules at that one. He plays a lot of, but that one specific thing he's been playing since he's 2, he's the best ever at, and I admire that, and I wish I had specialized more.
See, I think it depends on that. This is like a grass is always greener thing, like because that guy, and I think Yo-Yo Ma is probably the exception in a lot of ways.
He seems happy,
but there are lots of people who are like the 3rd best cello player in the United States, and they hate their life because they
wait. There is one person, Kyle, who is the 3rd best.
No, there's lots of people because it goes up and down. It's a
variety of 3rd best.
Good point.
Yeah. There are a lot of people who are the 3rd best at something, or they're like really high up in that thing, and they're like, man, really wish I had done more than just this because my dad picked the cello for me or whatever. So I think it's easy to kind of get on the other side of that.
I know 2 professional cellists who are like absolutely phenomenal, and they're just are only like 9 cello jobs in the country, and so it's been very hard for them to find work, and they've auditioned for so many jobs that they could not get because like there's just way too many.
It's a function of where you're at in the story too, because if you pick the moment when that cello player is like, oh, like there's a cello renaissance and they happen to be in the right place at the right time, then it sounds great. But if you pick the part where, like you said, like, hey, I'm the 5th best cello player in the world and there's 4 cello jobs in the world, that sucks. And then the same for you. Like if you're in a period where you feel like, oh man, this variety stuff, like none of it's really working. Well, that might be the lead up to a year from now when you're like, oh, because I did all these different things, I was able to write this script and it turned into, the Avengers Part 5 or whatever. And then that's the part of the story where it just really depends on where you're at.
This is very persuasive. I'm feeling very persuaded by this. So I'm convinced that this is like an upper quartile.
Maybe it's just my sort of my thing. I also don't like the sort of people who are wishy-washy on things. Right? I don't like people who don't stand for anything.
Yeah.
Who don't have like any kind of like real principles.
Yeah.
And, all about like variety is also a little bit can be misused a lot. A variety of ideas is how we get a lot of both sizing.
Right.
Both siding,
point.
right? Is how we get a lot
there
of
should be very few points of view on Nazism. We don't need a variety of Nazi opinions.
Yeah, exactly. I don't need a bunch of talking heads on it. So I do think that variety can come off as as enabling a lot of bad things or being used as a justification for how you can sneak in more bad things.
Fair.
I want to narrow in on this now. We got to give it a number so that we get to go home.
I mean, it is absolutely better than the Nordic track. That's kind of where I'm drawing the line.
Boy, you hated that Nordic track. That's so funny.
No, I like the Nordic track. I just think variety is clearly better than the Nordic track.
Okay, yeah, I think that's an easy one to draw. I'm fine with that.
But yeah, I also think like it's like not as good as like My Neighbor Totoro. So that's what I'm kind of saying. Like somewhere
that's like a singular vision. I think
9, right?
Yeah.
Like there is somewhere in there.
I also love anytime the sun gets pushed down. That makes me laugh every time, even though the sun is great.
I don't need different kinds of sun, though. So that's why I would have a tough time on that one, right?
I mean, I would love
of course you do. You need dappled sun. It's constantly changing little bits of sun.
I like this one sun. I don't want it to be bigger or smaller. It's actually perfect as it is. Really,
clouds some days, clouds not.
That's right. That's why people in the Midwest are always kind of taking a dump on people from LA. They're like, yeah, it's nice weather, but that's why LA is a desert, because you have the sun for 300-something days a year. That's why nothing grows there. So you need rain, you need sun.
Oh, man, you're so wrong about that part. But yeah, like literally everything grows here. But how are your oranges?
Because you steal lots of water.
Oranges, Kyle. Anyway,
they're doing great, but also how's the corn that is literally the only thing that anyone in this country eats, and oranges are not grown.
But we shouldn't eat the corn. The corn is the problem. We're being force-fed your corn.
Also, the only reason those oranges are growing is because you're pulling all of the water out of the entire river system out there. That's why there's
the river.
Tell the people in Lake Mead how great it is. Yeah.
The river wants to be here because it's trying to be an actor.
Oh, it's trying to make it? Oh, no.
The actor has a screenplay it wants you to read. Okay.
So I think what we're saying is variety at number 8.
I think 8's not a bad answer. I would also take it above advice columns because I'm not, now that Mike's not here anymore, I'm not super persuaded about advice columns. They're fine.
Well, the hype cycle's over for advice columns?
Well, this is how I'm always going to be, and Kyle, I'm sorry, this will happen to you too. I'm very passionately in favor of this, whoever's on their thing, and then when you're not there, I lose some of my passion for your item. So
no, see, what's going to happen for me actually is it's going to be a slow burn over time. You can put me wherever you want because it's going to just rise to the top. Everything else is being pushed down. What if over time mine just you guys keep being convinced about
somehow it happens? Yeah,
I think that's very possible.
So like a mattress in a landfill, it will just slowly come to the surface.
So where are we? We're at 8 or 9.
I like 8.
2.
I think we said 2. That's a good guess. I like 8.
Let's try 8.
Let's try 8. See how it feels. All right, there it is. Variety is the new number 8.
Right. In the middle.
Yeah, well, this is a cowardly move too. We also are starting to pack the middle each week.
It's really, it's the odds of it going in the middle is like getting higher and higher. It's going to be, and that's actually so that's the most for variety to be average is probably true because
true.
If you take an average for all the quality of all variety, if you just said that earlier,
we could have saved a lot of time. The most appropriate answer for variety is for it to be around the middle.
Yeah, I like
Bell
it.
curve. All right, I love it. We are now up to 16 things on the master list. You can see the whole master list on our website, bestthingeverpodcast.com. All right, let's do a little bit of business, and then we'll send everybody home. Two quick emails. First, this is a few weeks ago, but Tom wrote in, Anthony, I'm glad you're back for this. Tom said, I am a volunteer firefighter, and I loved hearing about the history and how you as firefighting was different from what I know. A pretty big negative side of all emergency services seems to be a growing public willingness to fight with those people who are trying to help.
Jesus.
So this is something that we didn't talk about on your firefighting episode, but attacks on EMTs and firefighters are rising, and people are discouraged to volunteer. And so my theory on this is I think that firefighters should, in addition to the jaws of life, they should be allowed to have the jaws of death. I think you should give them both tools.
Oh, no.
Don't fight with a firefighter. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just big fire, poisoning people's minds.
I think that's what it is.
But no.
Tom also recommended, I don't know if you've seen this, Anthony, Fire Force.
I have not.
It's an anime about firefighting that is absolutely realistic. So if you want to see more of what it's like to be inside a firefighting world from an animated world, check out Fire Force.
Huh.
All right.
Yeah. Jaws of Death. I'm going to pitch that. Okay, and then Robin had a comment last week. This was really interesting. So, and you guys don't know about this, but I want to catch you guys up on what's happened. I want to tell people at home in the name of transparency. So Robin commented on the YouTube that the Figma text foresmelled Ezra's correction of me. So what happened, Ezra and Anthony, is that last week I forgot to hit record on the visuals. So I had to go back and recreate the experience of the podcast while screen recording and redo everything. And one thing I missed was there had been a correction that you issued, and I forgot to screw it up again so that I could correct it while it was happening. So if you were watching along on the YouTube, you foresmelled the correction that was about to happen. And when I came clean about that, Robin said, unprompted, these are all lies. That correction was already made. The pro wrestling episode was fixed. Hunter was never at Waffle House. And we have never discussed publicly, but Hunter was not at Waffle House. As you know this. No one else knows this. So on the Waffle House episode, Hunter told us this great story about being at Waffle House, and then kind of offhandedly mentioned that it happened like months ago, and he didn't actually want to go for our show because he was too tired. And we ended up cutting it as like for time and for flow of the episode. We did not actually use that bit. But he absolutely did not go to Waffle House. So Robin instinctively knew and fact-checked the podcast. Isn't that wild? Kyle, does this mean anything to you?
Absolutely not. No. But I'm enthralled.
I can see you're very enthralled by this. Anyway, so thank you, Robin.
It's mostly just that I have to pee. That's kind of.
Oh, I'm so ready to let you do that. Okay, so next week we don't know what the topic is yet. Let's get going. All right, our theme music is by @Metrix. Our logo design is by @Tom Typography. You can find us on Instagram and probably shouldn't on Twitter @BTE Pod, YouTube Alex Falcone, and you can leave us an honest 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. You can send us email, mail@bestthingeverpodcast.com. Thank you to all of our producers, Ranger Patrick, John the Consigliere, the Duke of Jill, Best Assistant Regional Manager Sean, and Claire, title TBD. From the earlier portion, who was the lie? Ezra was the lie. You didn't win a science fair project by changing the color of your pet fish. I made that up.
That seems like a horrible thing to do, so no, I didn't do that.
I was thinking genetically, and you meant with food coloring. You went with food coloring?
Okay, how would I possibly do that genetically? You can't.
Breeding fish. I don't know.
That's not changing the color of a pet fish. That's making a new fish.
Changing the color of pet fish over time.
Okay. Just imagine 5th grader Ezra in a lab coat with a CRISPR machine, just doing some DNA resequencing.
I love it. But Anthony has moved 3 times, and I did carry baggage for a brothel owner because I lived in Reno, and that's where they had to fly out of, and I was working at the airport. So sometimes people you'd seen on the news as notorious brothel owners would come through, and I didn't have to move their bags. And specifically, this guy got in a fight with Southwest over damaging his bag. Like, he was trying to, act big time with his fancy, expensive luggage on Southwest. It was hilarious. I'm Alex Falcone. You can follow me on TikTok, unless you're in Montana, @Alex_Falcone. Ezra, thanks for being here. Delete this newsletter.substack.com.
Yeah, of course.
Anthony, thanks for hanging out.
Oh, yeah.
And Kyle Scheele, get Kyle's book, came out last year, How to Host a Viking Funeral, which is a book about regret. And I think from the conversation today, you will understand where he's coming from much better with the book. I think it makes total sense together. Your thoughts on regret. Also, and I love this book and I love this project. So the project that you were talking about, and I loved the behind the scenes of you building a giant cardboard ship to throw a match into.
Yeah, thank you. It was great to be here.
KyleScheele.com, also @KyleScheele on all the socials, including TikTok, where you are just a king. And it's been amazing getting to talk to you. Thank you for doing the show.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, go pee. We'll talk to you next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.